Cool.
Okay, we are live. We're going to let some people come in here and populate. We have Gavin here from ShotScope, from across the pond, so to speak. Can you give me, before we do this, because, you know, the world is in a unique place right now, and you and I have had these conversations before. Tell me about the sign behind you there.
Yeah, I'm currently, well, I mean, this is not going to go well for me. Currently in my parents' house because my wife and I have sold our house. That's the first thing. But also, we had a bout of COVID in the household. So normally I'd go down to the office, do something but like this there, but working at it from home and chatting to Jen, she was asking me what I'm doing today. I was like, I'm doing a live stream with Josh in the Hackers Paradise. And she's like, yeah, your background sucks. So it's the only thing I could find. And I can't remember where we used it. I don't even, you can't see the top of it because of the spotlight.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like a convention PGA show kind of thing. How's it going, everybody joining us? I want to kick this off a little bit for those that don't know you. Your background in golf is rather unique for those that work in the golf industry because you came from the playing side. Can you kind of give our people kind of your background in a nutshell without, I know you don't love to pat yourself on the back and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I played college golf at Lynn University down in Boca. I spent 4 years
Which we've
there.
had a conversation about because I almost went to school there. So
yeah, you know, obviously for a Scottish kid, different lifestyle playing down in South Florida. Learned a lot. I then played golf for Scotland, represented Scotland on the world stage, played Walker Cup in 2009, turned professional and played 5 years on the Challenge Tour. And now I gave that up. I spent what I made or made what I spent. And then and kind of my aim was get out of golf, and I found my way into ShotScope, and now I hack it about at a weekend, like pretty much 99% of the golfers
would dream of still, considering we've talked about that as well. Before we get into it, those following along, we are, during this live stream, we are going to give away a laser and a V3, thanks to Gavin. And we're going to pick some people based on questions. And a lot of questions are coming in, and we're going to try to get to most of them, guys. The first question that I wanted to ask was actually from one of our people in here, Donnie. And I'll bring it up on the screen here. He says, do most GPS devices use the same database of yardages?
That is a great question. So when we started ShotScope, there were 3 or 4 main providers. And we looked at the system and thought we couldn't afford to use them in reality. So we built our own system for course maps. So he's right. There are probably 3 providers that a lot of the companies use. ShotScope uses our own system. We had elite golfers build our own course mapping database. So an advantage with ShotScope is if you contact us, our support team have got direct access into that database, can go and switch something up, add a new bunker, reverse nines, whatever it may be that needs altered.
That's great. Interesting question here. Do you think the average golfer would benefit more from GPS rather than a laser? You make both. You use both. What do you think? I have my own thoughts on this, but you're here with us.
I would go GPS yardage, mainly because using a laser is a skill, right? It is using a skill. Hitting a pin's okay, but hitting the front of bunkers, understanding what distances are to carry, certainly with the performance tracking of V3, that's going to help an average golfer way more than a laser rangefinder will do. You know, and knowing your front, middle, and backs, a lot of the time you shouldn't be playing the pin distance. You want to be playing center of the green or something middle to back of the green. So having more distances is always helpful.
Yeah. I actually gave a story on a recent episode of Off Course that I've been switching from laser to GPS and finding myself focusing on quadrants of the green and how much it's helped me as a borderline single digit golfer. I can't imagine how many times I shot a pin, hit it to that pin, but missed a little right or left and found myself short-sided and immediately bring in a much bigger number. Interesting question here from Michael Ward.
In my youth.
Yeah. I think he's calling you old.
Yeah. Hey, I played a national event and a 14-year-old was in our team.
Oh,
And that was a difficult experience.
If you knew then what you know now, and had shot scope, how would your game have evolved?
Yeah, I mean, so I am a bigger guy. So if I knew what I knew then, I would have been hardcore gym. I would have hit driver everywhere. I think back to my amateur golf days, and there were too many times that I would respect the course too much or hit irons off tees. We were taught a lot of that growing up, get the ball in play, placement. In reality, I should have just smashed driver about the place. Got the
Do
ball
you
as
feel
close as I
that way
could to the
about
hole.
most skill levels, or strictly more the better player?
The data supports getting the ball closer to the hole at every opportunity.
Right.
Is what I would say. Now, obviously, that is complicated by, hey, there's a pond front right. There's bunkers.
The course you're playing has extremely penalizing rough or trees everywhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
but in general, the data supports be more aggressive. And for a handicap golfer, and I put myself in that, we can make a bad swing with any club.
Yeah.
The fact that you pull hybrid off the tee does not guarantee you hit the fairway. Does anything but. So
the second hole at my course is a short par 4 that doglegs a little to the left, and Dan is in here. He's played this hole with me, and I always pull hybrid, and I always miss the fairway. And I always tell myself, "Oh, I'm going to hit driver. Oh, I'll go through the fairway with driver," but I won't. And it's just a crazy thought. What do people usually miss in their data that could help them improve their scores?
Simplest one is how far they hit the golf ball with each club. We tend to find with shot scope, first 6, 7 rounds, once they've played, they get a golfer gets a great feel for exactly how far they're going to hit the ball with a good swing and a good strike, and they can start to make better decisions off that. And even for myself, I hit the ball further than average at an elite level, but I'm always learning that I don't quite hit the ball as far as I think. So making better decisions off that, and if you extrapolate that out to a 15 handicapper, guys can be under clubbing themselves by 2 clubs.
I really think you're ruining some dreams here.
Yeah,
have
but
you had?
They do better at the end of the day.
This is an interesting question because it's kind of a different avenue. Scooby wants to know if OEMs reached out to you for the data set, because at the end of the day, if Facebook and Google have told us anything, it's your data is the most valuable thing you can offer. Has that been a thing yet?
Yes and no. So we have had a discussion with every OEM out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time they want to come and start asking some questions, and what do you know? What do you have? How do you collect it? They're all trying to figure it out. And you see that with Callaway, being involved with Top Golf and 5-iron golf, and they're interested in what's happening out with selling golf clubs and golf balls.
Right.
We have never passed any data as such, and we don't pass data to OEMs as such. But they're more just interested to see what's up. They're for the most part, those companies aren't going to go and build electronics. That's not their skill set. It's not what they want to do. But they're all trying to understand what's going on in the performance tracking market.
This is one that jumped out at me as a guy who is concentrating a little bit more on health and fitness for the first time in his life. Is there any plans for something like this?
I would say not in the current watch, as the V3s, as far as I'm aware, for the development plan. I would say at the same time, we're not launching any new watches next year for golfers. So just so everybody's aware of
But
that.
you are launching things next year,
We
and they're going
are
to want to stay tuned for that. I'm not going to give anything away, but it's cool. You're going to want to pay attention to that.
We are launching some stuff, but not watches. It is something we've looked at. We do have plans to do some fitness-based stuff, but as typical, just adding a step counter probably isn't quite what we are wanting to do at ShotScope. We want to go and investigate a bit more, and in reality, we want to go and investigate things that affect your golf game and performance and link up. Well, hey, you've walked 300 yards, 400 yards. How's that changed? You walked uphill, you've walked downhill. So we're looking at things, but not in the immediate future.
Okay. This is one we get all the time, which is about editing after the round. What's the normal edit rate?
Need to correct 2 to 3 per shot. Yeah. So as with GPS will fluctuate a little bit depending on course, depending on atmospheric conditions. I would say for myself, I probably edit 2 to 3 shots a round. So probably something in that region. I'd say if anybody was missing or doing more than that, the best thing to do is go and contact our support team. They're able to go into the back, look at some of the data collection behind, suggest improvements, suggest changes. So we're always able to kind of optimize. But yeah, 2 to 3 shots is probably normal.
And I told you this question was going to be coming. How good is this? How good is slope? And we're going to expand this out. How good is shot scope for the average weekend hacker?
Yeah. So I mean, I tend to think if you're not performance tracking in 3 to 5 years, you'll be left standing. It will become the absolute norm for all golfers. From a weekend standpoint, even more so. I'd like to think as a weekend golfer myself, I don't practice, so I need to know as much about my game as I can, about what I'm expecting to do. From a point of view of slope, again, understanding the effect of slope, massive change, massive difference. And again, that's where performance tracking, you can go back and see exactly what specific holes that hole might play uphill. You're always short. Hey, I need to take more club there. You can start to learn subsequently it's downhill and you're short or you're long. So very important.
Okay, so this is a question I've asked you before, which is I play the same course 99% of the time. I don't value the GPS as much because of that. What can data do for me? And before you go on, I'm going to share a story. When I first got my ShotScope V3 about, 90 days before it was released to the public, I was tasked with writing down the clubs that I thought I hit best and my least used clubs and this and that. And I wrote down I could get rid of my 56-degree wedge. And it turned out it was my most used wedge, and I had no idea. But actually setting the bag and learning the distances was crazy to me when using the device. What else can somebody pick up for somebody who plays the same course all the time?
Yeah, I think first of all, if you're playing the same course all the time, are there certain holes that you don't play as well? So could we be looking at, hey, the 6th hole, you don't play as well, you should be more aggressive off the tee. You currently hit your hybrid. Let's get you hitting driver. Let's look at holes individually. So actually, by playing the same course all the time, you're going to create a great data set that's going to allow us to tell and provide insights into how you should play individual holes. Again, you're right on the performance tracking side. I mean, usage of short game clubs. Are you stuck using the same things? Or are you, for instance, talk about my father-in-law plays the same course in Scotland a lot, and he introduced a hybrid from off the green. And I was sitting with him and we're looking through his data, and he was shocking with this hybrid from around the greens. Yet he kept going. So we removed that from his shot selection. He started to play better. He started to score a little bit better. So there's so many different avenues that you can go into in the data and get little snippets. And, in some respects, I see playing the same course for performance data is actually a benefit because you're going to have such a good data set.
One of the things that I'm going to add on is if data whether it's this or any data or any single aspect of golf, if something was going to change your game by, let's say, a stroke and a half to 2 strokes around, what's that worth to somebody? Because to me personally, it's worth a ton.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'd expect to see that as well. Somebody coming on and data capturing for the first time.
As a company that makes both laser and GPS, laser is more accurate, obviously. But as you said, accurate to what? If you're not great at shooting the very front of a bunker, or if you play at sea level where there's no terrain issues or anything else like that, can you even shoot the front of a bunker?
Yeah, I mean, in reality, they're two different products that kind of compete against each other. But what we're seeing, especially, is we're seeing a lot of golfers using both. And in my terms, I use both. Mainly once I get within 150 yards, I'll shoot the pin. That's going to be my target. But if I'm standing with a par 5 at 240, I don't care where the pin is. I'm just trying to hit the middle of the green or the front of the green. So
Right.
it's about taking both those distances and using them correctly at the correct time.
So I got one from social media that came through. They would like to know what's in the bag, your current golf bag.
You see, this is where I look bad because I'm still carrying some clubs I had as a pro. So I've got a R1 driver.
Oh my God.
It's going back a while. It was fitted. I had a prototype Fuji shaft in it. I've got a Rocket Balls 4-wood. So that's going.
When
going
you come
back
to
a
the
bit.
States, we're gonna have to fix this.
I have got TaylorMade MC 3-iron. And the reason I carry that, which is bizarre, is because I've got Ben Hogan irons. I've got the I mean, this is shocking. So the Pro PTs, maybe PT Pros, PTX Pros.
Yeah, PTX Pros.
In black, and they're beautiful. I've also
I know
got,
we've talked about how much you like those irons.
yeah, but they don't do a 3-iron. So I've got my 3-iron, my old 3-iron, which is like chrome, sits in there. I've then got blacked out Ben Hogan wedges as well, which are fantastic. And I carry 50, 58, 50, 54, 58. And then I've got again, this is wild, a Kiamiya TaylorMade putter, which has got 0 degrees loft because I've got a bit of a weird putting style. And it's like the only one in the world that's got a different insert. And yeah.
Wow, we're gonna have to fix a lot of that.
And I'm a pencil bag user as well, so it's like slinged over the shoulder, and yeah.
Jeez. This is a question we kind of discussed. Do you see users rearrange the top of their bag based on data?
Oh, absolutely.
Guilty.
Yeah. So we see multiple things. We see golfers make better decisions at the top of their bag. For gapping purposes, we see them use performance data to go and look at whether they should replace new equipment. So drivers go and get a demo and tag it up and get some data capture. And then at the bottom of the bag, a lot of it comes down to how many wedges should you be carrying? Should it be 2, 3, or 4? And a lot of that's dependent on your club distances and your gapping. So again, we see a real mix between a 25 handicapper and a 5 handicapper of how they manage that bag and what is the iron number that starts. So for a 5 handicapper on average, it's a 4-iron. For a 25 handicapper, it could be a 5 or a 6-iron that's that first iron.
Yeah.
So
what do you think is the distance where exact yardage is necessary? Or do you not think so?
Depends on the golfer. I would suggest anybody 10 and below, you probably are looking for an exact distance from within 100 yards.
Your data probably supports that too, right?
Yeah, and then after that, it's again, if you, I saw a stat on Twitter, so it could be wrong, but talking about Woods missed 20% of greens from 100 yards in his time. So from 100 yards, what is your goal? Is your goal
And
to
I
attack
feel
the
like I should
flag?
hit it every time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, crikey, I can. I've got the data in front of this. This could be set up a real problem, but for us, from 75 to 125 yards, a 25 handicapper will hit the green 27% of the time.
Wow.
A 5 handicapper 60% of the time.
So really close to 50-50 from 100 yards, a single digit low handicap golfer is going to hit the green.
Yeah. So should you be hitting the middle of the green number, or
Yeah.
you want to play the middle side of the pin. So if the pin's front, you want to be going middle of the green. If it's back, you want to be almost going middle of the green. And in a daft way, I mean, what we see is it's not about creating birdies; it's about avoiding bogeys and doubles and triples.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key to better golf.
This is a question that we kind of touched on it, but I also think it's super interesting because you are a tech company. Would there be any plans to add connectivity for make it a smartwatch kind of thing?
Never say never. I mean, we may do this in the future, not with the V3. And part of that is our core belief at ShotScope is really we produce great technology, but technology that in the game of golf doesn't slow down the game of golf. And there's a lot of devices out there that will slow down the game of golf. And
the next question segues into this perfectly, which is, do you think distance measuring devices speed up the game?
Well, I was going to say I mean I played a national tournament this year with the 14-year-old kid, and they had a scoring app. And the guy, I finished it, and he's like, "What do you think of our scoring app?" I was like, "Wow, I answered 14 emails in my round. I just couldn't resist answering emails." And I was like, "That's terrible." So, do I think distance measures devices speed up the game? Yes, they do. The watches are quicker than the lasers because they're on your wrist. It's just a simple look. We need distances as golfers. So if you're not getting it from a laser or a GPS watch, you're pacing out from the 150 marker that's back there or the 100 marker. So you're always going to need some type of distance device.
It's funny you mentioned the laser, not being as fast as GPS. I just came from an event and I watched two people stand on the tee box lasering, standing directly next to each other as if they don't trust each other or they're going to get a different measurement. And we posted the picture in the forum.
Yep.
Interesting one. What elevation measurements that something that isn't easily measured by GPS? Like, how does this work with GPS compared to a slope on a rangefinder?
Something that isn't easily measured. Elevation measurements. Yeah. So we've looked at elevation and should we put that into the watches and slope? Getting the correct data is a challenge. So we're very conscious that I don't want to provide anything that's incorrect. And you see this with a variety of watches or companies, and they come out and talk about something. And the last thing I want to do is say to my golfer in the first hole, "Hey, this is playing 10 yards uphill, hit an extra club." And it's not, because you've lost trust. So we have looked at elevation from a point of view of adding into the watches, but we're not really comfortable with the data sets and the information we can get and the accuracy of that information. So until that stage we can get that, we won't be introducing slope on the watches. Lasers, slope's easy. That's a standard feature, really.
So battery was an issue I don't want to say an issue because I didn't struggle with the V2 like most people did, but there were a number of people who did. It's been solved with V3. Do you think the next version will be smaller? You've already said they're not going to bring a watch next year.
Yeah, so size battery GPS and V2.
I don't think it's that big now.
Yeah, I mean V2 was a big watch. The V3 is pretty much iWatch size.
Yeah, I mean there's an Apple Watch, and my V3 is backed by my golf bag, but I think they're roughly the same size.
Yeah, I mean, so I've got one. So in reality, where we're at with the watches is, and if anybody's watching and they want to learn more, hop on our website and it'll show. But effectively, we've got an antenna in the strap. One side of the strap's got an antenna, and therefore that um, allows you to talk to the tag a certain distance away. Well, we can't really reduce that size of that strap because of that technology. We need it that size to be able to reach. So I don't see us making the watch any smaller. I kind of feel like it's the right size. We'll change up. Hopefully, one of the challenges for us in a couple of years is to bring out a watch that's got a bigger screen size, effective to the face, etc., or add in
Yeah.
some other features. But the general size of the watch is probably something that we're quite comfortable with now.
So this is a question we kind of touched on it earlier, but not in this detail. For a hacker golfer, should we expect to hit the ball very well or be conservative and play to the back of the green? And one of the things that my actual teacher told me is that I should be playing whatever 5 yards off the back of the green number is rather than to the middle. Is that something that the data supports?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at, I mean, I've got it up in front of me. So 125 yards to 175 yards. A 10 handicapper short of the green 34% of the time.
Ooh,
So 1 in 3.
that's me. I'm a 9.1 right now.
So a 20 handicapper short 50% of the time. So in reality, what we like to suggest is if you're looking at front, middle, and back, and the pin's on the front half of the green, the middle's your number. If you're looking at it and the pin is in the middle of the green, the back is your number. That's where we would be supporting. And it's really, I would suggest for handicap golfers, a good shot is getting pin high. That's a good shot. Get that distance correct, and you'll start to see scores tumble because of it.
This is a in the weeds type of question, and I like it. Jeremy asked, how do you know your exact yardage when devices are giving total yardage and not carry yardage?
Okay, so I'm presuming this is for performance tracking and club distances,
Correct. Yes.
etc. Yeah. Okay. So, a good question. I mean, for us, the way that we do yardages is we've got average distance, which is all your shots, and then we do performance average, which we remove the outliers, good and bad, and we like to test that and say that that is a distance of a good strike with a good swing. We've backed that up using TrackMan, etc., and the total yardage comes out. What I would suggest is, if I was to say my 7-iron's 170, I know that it's going to land and stop from the height I hit it. But if I'm playing firmer conditions, that number probably stretches to 175. So you need to factor in the ground conditions and what your ball reacts to, but it's a solid guide to the distances that you're playing with on the course. And I think a lot of golfers just benefit from that knowledge itself.
So this is the question I've been waiting for, and I'm curious your answer. Tevener asks, what's the differentiator from your technology and others? Basically, hey, there's a couple of these devices, one of which is, I think, no longer, but maybe trying to come back in game golf, the other one being Arcos. I can start with the fact that you don't have a subscription, which is a huge deal for me personally. But what is the difference from your aspect? Because you're a big supporter of data in general, and obviously a supporter of ShotScope, being that you work there. But what is the difference from your take internally?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So I mean, I'm a big supporter of performance tracking. So if you're not tracking with ShotScope, go and track with somebody else. I think it'll benefit the golfers listening. For ShotScope, we like to think that we allow the golfer to performance track without slowing down the game, slowing down their game. Without them having to change their game, without them being distracted from their game. So effectively, you can go out and play your 18 holes, and in the background, all the data is captured. You're not doing anything, then you can upload it after the round of golf. You're not playing with phones. You're not having to check whether shots were registered, etc. That to us is where I think we're different.
And you don't charge me an extra $100 a year.
And we don't charge you anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to post this one up here because this gentleman uses ShotScope, and I can explain the question where he says upgrade the durability. But I'm going to put a caveat here, and I'm going to embarrass Mr. Jeter because he came to the tech studio, and right behind me is a grip changing station. And when he went to change his grips, he forgot to take the tags out. So I don't think it's about as much of the durability of the tags as it is about the durability of the person making the grip change. But are there any thoughts on the screw-in side of things and changing that up at all?
At the moment, no. You know, the screw-in, the advantage, the advantage of our tags is there's no batteries in them, so they're everlasting.
Yeah.
Right. And for the most part, they're pretty hard wearing things. And they have a tough life as well. They get slammed about in golf bags, etc. So they're
you've
pretty,
met this gentleman.
Yeah. So they're pretty hard wearing. The advantage for us, because there's tags, is you can always hop on the website, get some more. We sell them and as sets. But they kind of do what they need to do. We've looked at other methods, but actually the screw in and the hard wearing plastic and the fact that there's nothing in there and they're light, they're quite compelling as they are.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, and I didn't think I would. I always thought the embedded in the grip was the solution, and I'm not sure I agree with that anymore.
It's expensive.
Yeah, and it changes. First of all, it changes the length. Second of all, the battery does go dead. There's more going on there. This is an interesting question. From Jason, do you have a metric that shows the shots gained aspects of areas in your game while using ShotScope?
Yes. So we show all of strokes gained for goodness me, tee shots, approaches, wedge play, short game, putting. You can break it down by strokes gained by club. You can break it down by distance segments. We're currently working on adding that to our web dashboard as well with some new features. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for strokes gained, we've got you covered there.
So here's another question that Dan asks, a really interesting one, which is, what do you tell the golfer who doesn't use this type of thing to get them on board? Like, what's the one thing that you tell the person?
It's going to depend a little bit on the golfer, but if I'm playing with somebody and they start asking, a lot of golfers don't know what they're going to get out of shot tracking. So even just being able to sort of explain, well, this is how it works. You don't have to interact, but you're going to gain this. You're going to gain your club distances. You're going to be able to look at, if you're going to get a new driver, does it go further? Does it hit more fairways? You can test equipment, but you're going to understand how you can improve your game. And that could be in the short game because you don't use enough clubs, or you take pitching wedges out of bunkers, but you don't realize you do, and you shouldn't. You should take your lob wedge. You gain so much throughout the game. So once you start talking to golfers and telling them little bits and pieces about that, you start to pique interest. And then for me, like I say, I'm an advocate of shot tracking as a whole. I think our solution is the best, but there's multiple solutions. Go and investigate a little bit and work out what's going to be the best solution for you. But get yourself shot tracking, because if it's a case of, hey, if I cut myself down 3 shots a round, I'm going to take the money off my buddies every Saturday, then is that not worth shot tracking? Is it, I want to be a single figure for the first time? Well, there's a great goal. So we all have goals because we all have handicaps. We all keep a score.
So this kind of falls into that a little bit and expands on it. So let's say someone jumps out and they watched this and they say, okay, I want this V3. What do they do after they get the data? I know you could spend hours going into this part because we've talked about it a lot. But what should the person immediately do with the data to start with?
Yeah, so I mean, on our app, you can go and benchmark against other handicaps. So, for instance, a lot of what we do on the website is we throw out case studies, we throw ebooks out which shows how golfers can take data in certain segments and improve and level it. So providing, as long as you don't work with a PJ professional and you're on your own, you're not doing lessons, hop onto the system, start to look at strokes gained benchmarking, understand where you're losing shots. And if it's short game, okay, hop into short game and look at more of the traditional data. Start to figure out, is there specific distances? Are there specific clubs? And then what we really say is, okay, well, now go and change what you do normally. So normally, hey, I pitch with my sand wedge and my lob wedge. Okay, well, why don't you try pitching with a pitching wedge and 9-iron? Let's do that for a couple of rounds. Okay, look, your proximity to the hole has improved with that. You can see strokes gained has improved. Right, let's implement that more. Are you, oh, I'm gaining shots against my benchmarked handicap. Perfect. What can I do? Approach play. Let's go and look at something different. So it's trying to understand. We do a good job on the website of showing case studies, ebooks, that highlight how you can take the little segments and make changes to your game.
So Dan's following up here. And I really liked this question. How many times have you heard from a golfer that the device doesn't work because they don't hit it as far as they think? Because we get it a lot on the launch monitor.
Not, to be honest, we don't get that as much as you would think. We get, we'll get golfers come back, like I said earlier. Hey, I'm missing shots with certain clubs. I'm missing certain types of short game shots. I'm missing bunker shots, and the guys on our support team do a great job of sort of optimizing and working with them to show them how the system works, why that shot's missing. But due to them not hitting it as far as they think, we show longest. So people, you know, some guys that want to kid themselves will maybe harbor on and keep on with the longest distance. But yeah, you know, it's sobering for us all. We don't hit it as far as we may think.
Yeah, I think mine's broken.
But that's good. Because
mine's definitely, my averages are way lower than I hit the ball.
Once you face that reality, Josh, you make better decisions. You score lower. That's the key.
More important to know info around greens off or on greens themselves, or of the greens themselves?
That is a good question. I mean, again, if you're taking handicap golfers, what are the two issues that you would face? Generally, for on greens, it's 3-putt avoidance. Can we get that 3-putt number down? If you're looking at a 20 handicapper, they're probably 3-putting 3 times around. So there's 3 shots you could save.
Wow.
But if you're looking at up and down percentage, or, you know, proximity, there's so many gains around the greens, and a lot of it, when you look at data, is what are you doing in the shot around the green, but what also led you to miss the green? So is it back to the original, you know, 10 questions ago? If I hit a club more, I wouldn't have missed the green short. Therefore, I'm not pitching, I'm putting. So it's trying to link up and find out where was there something that we could have changed.
This kind of follows that. What if we just suck with our approaches and putt like a blind person asking for a friend?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of improvement to be made there. But I think that's the thing, and a lot of golfers' perception of data and data capture is the golfer that had the second scorecard, who spent 10 minutes after that hole writing down everything they did, and then spent 2 hours putting it into an Excel sheet. You know, the data capture is automatic. Uploading it takes 10 seconds. And there's things that, you know, maybe you want to use the data to improve, or maybe you just want to compete with your buddies. We've got leaderboards, so you can go compete over long drives with your buddies. Depends how you want to use data.
I'm putting this up there because there's a lot of people, as I go through the questions, and we're way behind. We're going to keep Gavin for about 15 more minutes. making fun of your golf bag. And this one popped up that I thought was perfect.
Yeah, I
Or,
mean, look,
or this one. I like this one too.
I mean, there's a couple of sides of this. One, I haven't paid for anything in my golf bag for a long, long time, and that's partly, currently living with my parents because we bought a new house. Times are tough. Got a little kid. Do they not sell golf clubs? The other side of this, right? And we'll laugh, and this is a great forum to air this issue on. Is I mean, my ball speed's like 175 off the tee. So where do I go get shafts fitted for me? I
I
can't
would
just
say the
rock.
United States.
I can't just rock up. So it's also the other side of the clubs work quite well for the most part. So I'm okay. I'm quite happy.
Jumping back to the questions, with green reading books coming out, anything in the future to fill that data? That's an interesting one because I don't know how it could be filled from shot scope other than you might be able to hit it closer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think from a viewer experience, I didn't enjoy a golfer looking at a booklet working out how far left or right to hit a putt. That didn't sit well with me when I was watching golf on the TV. I think, and I'm not an expert because it's kind of out of our field as such.
Right.
But I think they've pretty much tied up the rules and that there's not going to be anything that they can replace it with at a tour level. I mean, for the amateur golfer, green reading is a skill, something that we could all improve on. But certainly, there's no. Those green reading books were so specific; they were mapped so well for those individual courses that it's just not applicable to map 37,000 courses that way around the world.
Right.
So I don't know. I certainly it's not something that we're going to dive into from shot scope perspective.
I'm going to answer this question since it was asked to me. Do I wear both a V3 and an Apple Watch while you play? No. I actually wear the V3 while I play. The only time I ever wear an Apple Watch is while I'm traveling. I don't wear a watch normally, which is a little weird. But this is an interesting one because I don't think it could happen the way your technology works, correct?
Yeah, for the watches, for V3, you need to be wearing the watch for us to know that you're swinging it effectively to capture the shot.
Yeah. How big is the data set? You guys, it's huge now because the press release was 7 months ago. It was huge.
Yeah, we're at 152 million shots. So I get an email every day that says number of rounds, where the guys played, number of shots, total shots. So 152 million shots.
This is an interesting one. Where do golfers see the biggest statistical gains after getting shot data?
That is a good question. And actually, I would tend to think, and I'm not an expert, I would tend to think it's approach play. I mean,
Yeah.
I should be the expert, but I would. I don't know how I'm saying that.
I mean, you have the data.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't, to be honest, look at that. We tend to just look at raw improvement.
Oh, okay.
So my head would say approach play, mainly because they've got a better knowledge of how far they're going to hit the clubs, and we're most likely telling them that they're predominantly short and they should hit more club. So I'd like to think that fairways hit. There's not a whole lot you can do about that apart from change what you're hitting off the tee.
Yeah.
But in reality, fairways hit is a kind of a stat where it doesn't matter too much. It's really avoid the trees and avoid the bunkers off the tee. So I'd go with approach play.
This is an interesting one. Is there a point where you feel there's too much information for the average player? Or are there specific items that the high handicapper should look at specifically?
No, so the first part of that question is there too much information for the average player given by your products? So two sides of that. On the course, definitely not. I think that's a great where we've removed performance tracking off the course. We're providing you with all the numbers, the layup numbers, the hazard numbers that you need on the course. And then are there a few specific items that a higher handicapper can look at? To be honest, a lot of it actually comes down to the person. I know low handicap golfers who are like, I'm not a numbers guy. I just want to look at some numbers. These are the sort of levels, and we do a really good job on the app whereby we're not going to overawe you. We've got levels on the app, so if you want more data, you can click through every level and see more and more granular data. We're not just going to overawe you and throw it all in your face at the start.
So here's an interesting question that came from social, which is I bought a V3 and I've gained 1 stroke per round. What's the one thing I can do to take it to the next level? Because it's saying my club gapping is a little too close. So in their instance, the 4, 5, and 6 all go basically the same distance, 7 yards apart. What can this person do or glean from it? Because they're not going to change clubs in this aspect. What should they be doing to change that? And obviously, it's player dependent and easier to answer if you've seen the person play.
Yeah. Could we make a roll from our back? Reach out to us on social, whoever that is. They're obviously on social, and we'll have a little look at their data, and we'll make it a bit more specific. We'll maybe come back and put it on the forum or something, and we'll have a little bit of a dive into that.
I believe you just made this. You're now everybody's caddy. Tevin, we're going to answer this. The data experience is coming next year. It was supposed to come this year, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to come to the States. Next year it is coming. We're doubling up the people, and he will definitely be there and playing alongside everybody. The answer to this question, we answered it earlier. The V4 is not, I mean, it's coming, I'm sure, at some point, but next year, no new watches.
Yeah, correct.
This is one we get a lot, and I'm going to let you speak to it properly.
Yeah, okay. So this is a good question, Todd. So initially, we said that we wanted the watch on the leading wrist. So if you're a right-handed golfer, that would be your left-hand wrist. Now, in reality, we've changed it slightly, so it should work on both wrists, but a lot of it's going to do with the distance that the watch is away from the tag.
Okay.
So I would say it's always going to work for a right-handed golfer on the left wrist, and about 75% of the time it will work on the right arm.
Okay.
So
this is a question that I want to hear your answer, because I could give him an easy one, which is stop paying a subscription fee. But before you started working for ShotScope, let's say, you were the golfer, you had both these devices, how would you choose? Why would you go with ShotScope?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with ShotScope mainly because we're going to provide the performance tracking data. And also, I know some companies have kind of started doing some performance tracking data, but it's nothing like the level that we do. It's nothing, I know the team are working night and day to bring new features, releasing new information. So, it's about where the company's going, and as you said, we don't have subscriptions. We're not into charging people after the fact. We like we want users to stay with us for the long term. So it's, we're always looking for anything that can benefit a user. So we take care of everybody.
If you could get 2 PGA or LPGA players to wear your product and use them as advertising, who would it be? And why would it be Bryson?
Yeah, I mean, a year ago, if you asked me that, it wouldn't have been Bryson. But actually, it probably would be him.
Zero cost of activation. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get 2, you know what? So if I was going 2 PGA, I would go for Bryson, and I go for Phil.
Two guys who talk about their equipment.
Phil's a bit different, but Phil would show that data can be fun, and there's different things. You capture how far he hits off the tee, and all of that sort of interesting aspect. And Lpga, goodness me, you know what? We'd go for the Corda sisters, because
That's a good
again,
play.
you could battle the two of them against each other on leaderboards and some different aspects, which could get quite intense, I would imagine.
I told you this question would come.
Yeah, so I stopped partaking is the problem I have. I don't know, I stopped drinking 3 or 4 years ago, mainly because I didn't do enough of it. So I just get caught in the middle. My wife, however, can make up for it. I mean, she puts gin away like you wouldn't believe.
So good thing is she's not listening. What was your drink of choice?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Jack Daniels and Coke. I would quite happily drink vodka. I've never really got into craft beers. I liked Heineken's, Stella Artois. I'm trying to think, going back to sort of college.
I mean, not
days.
Scotch is pretty funny.
Yeah, not Scotch as much, really. If I was to choose a Scotch, it would be Highland Park, but I've got a few bottles from stuff, but I don't. Yeah, see, when you've got a young kid, you don't drink because next day it's just not worth it. It's not worth the pain.
Any plans for all the data to become an in-round caddy? I mean, I know it's not USGA legal, but have you guys put thoughts into this?
Yeah, so we've got some new features coming out next year. Probably not for an in-round, because again, I think you're starting to work to a position where you're slowing the game down. But we're looking at some things that you can do prior to the game and after the game that, again, will help you make better decisions and score better ultimately.
While the questions continue to pour in, we're going to have you switch posting them here and post them in the forum, because we're not going to keep Gavin here all day long. But we are going to announce 2 contest winners. We took everybody that was in the chat and asked a question and rolled them out. The winner of the V3 is Marjorie. And the winner of the laser is Blazenden. You guys are going to send myself or Golfer Gal a private message with your full name and shipping address, and we will get Gavin to ship those over to you. Now, keep in mind, they're coming from overseas, so when you don't get them tomorrow...
They're not.
Even
they're all in the US. We've got a US fulfillment center. We've got a Canadian
that's fantastic.
Oh,
that's why the last box didn't come with the big tape and everything on it. So you are going to get them soon. So guys, send us the private message with that info, and we're going to get these out to you, and we're going to look forward to your feedback on the forum if you can, as you start to use it. And stay tuned for a couple of things. Holiday cheer, we are going to be giving away more of these, so stay tuned for that. We haven't announced any prizes yet, but there's going to be a heck of a prize package coming from ShotScope. And stay tuned for more information on the data experience coming next year, because it's going to be pretty special. With 2 years in the making, we're going to go over the top. So you guys won't want to miss that. Plus, who doesn't want this guy to go over their round with them after the round of golf? That's just going to be
an R1.
There's a few guys who want to hand you the R1, but it's a personal mission now to make sure he's not playing that when he shows up. So
my backup driver's an R11, so it gets worse.
Well, we're going to get rid of that too. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and we look forward to doing this again with Gavin. We're going to do it quite a few times in the coming year and have a lot of fun with it. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.